So this article came out in Politico titled "Exasperated Democrats Try to Rein In on Ocasio-Cortez." And quite frankly, it is an infuriating article, and I'm going to go over why. Let's go ahead and just kind of read through this article together. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is already making enemies in the House Democratic caucus, and some of its members are mounting an operation to bring the anti-establishment Democratic Socialists with 2.2 million Twitter followers into the fold. Okay, so she's got a huge Twitter following, and she has been very anti-establishment. She's a progressive, so she wants to get money out of politics. She knows that there's a lot of corruption going on in Washington, and she's wanting to get rid of it. And that's what she was actually elected on. So it goes on to say, the effort described as nearly 20 lawmakers and aides is part carrot, part stick. Some lawmakers with ties to Ocasio-Cortez are hoping to coax her into using her star power to unite Democrats and turn her fire on Republicans. Others simultaneously warn Ocasio-Cortez is destined for a lonely, ineffectual career in Congress if she continues to treat her own party as the enemy. Wow. Okay. She's destined for a lonely, ineffectual career in Congress if she calls them out on their corrupt bullshit. This one says here, I'm sure Ms. Cortez means well, but there's almost an outstanding rule. Don't attack your own people, said Rep. Emanuel Cleaver, Democrat, Missouri. Or is it Montana? M.O. I forget. I need to go back to the 5th grade. We just don't need sniping in our Democratic caucus. Okay. Listen, corruption exists on both sides of the aisle. Yes, Republicans do a lot more of it, but Democrats are doing a lot of it too. And that's how she's there, because that's what she ran on, and that's why she's there. So to think she's all of a sudden going to change. Goes on to say, incumbent Democrats are most annoyed by Ocasio-Cortez's threat to back primary opponents against members of their ranks she deems too moderate. But their frustration goes beyond that. Democratic leaders are upset that she rallied against their new set of House rules on Twitter the first week of the new Congress. Rank and file are peeved that there's a grassroots movement to try to win her a top committee post they feel she doesn't deserve. I'm sorry, what? What do you mean she doesn't deserve a potentially top committee post? How do you deserve these top committee posts? I'll tell you how Congress thinks you deserve top committee posts. One of two ways, but really one big way. One way is seniority. So they're saying that she's too new to Congress. She's a freshman. She's only been here for a week. She's new to this whole thing, so she doesn't deserve these committee posts. But here's the thing. You only get 2 years, and then you have to rerun. And there's no guarantee you're ever going to be back. So you've got to do your darndest in those 2 years to make sure that you're doing everything you can for your people back home, for the American people, for your voters. That's your job. 2 years. I cannot believe that they've got this seniority thing going on in Congress. To be honest with you, every 2 years, they should just reset. It's a reset button. Everyone gets whatever it is they get. The committee posts, they should rotate those around. This is what you're elected to do. And so what is it? The people from New York that she represents, because they're getting a freshman congressperson, they don't deserve the same level of representation as a different district who has a rep that's been there for 20 years. That doesn't make any sense. So what do you mean she doesn't deserve it? The second way, by the way, that these committee posts are given out is who can fundraise the most. And that is well known in Washington. Whoever fundraises the most becomes Speaker of the House. That's why we have Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. She can fundraise better than anybody. She is actually a world-class fundraiser. Whether you think that's good or not, you have to wonder where that money's coming from. A lot of it's coming from big corporate interests that are not for the American people. They're for their bottom line. Other committees, they stack them with people who fundraise the most money. The top committee, you got to fundraise a bunch of money, $1 million. I'm not even exaggerating, during that election cycle. An A-level committee, that's what it is. A B-level committee, if you want to be on it, you need to be able to fundraise $800,000 that election cycle. And you've got to then donate a bunch of that money to the DCCC, or on the Republican side, it's the same thing. They're both doing it, both sides, okay? Goes on to say, even some progressives who admire AOC, as she's nicknamed, told Politico that they worry she's not using her notoriety effectively. I agree with that, but not in the way that these Democrats in the House who are attacking her are thinking. I'm thinking she needs to use more of it to expose this, to really show them the power is in the people. It's not in your rank and file. It is not in your seniority or how much people can fundraise. It is the people, the voices who become outraged very quickly and can turn your life upside down. She needs to decide. Quote, she needs to decide, does she want to be an effective legislator or just continue being a Twitter star, said one House Democrat who's in lockstep with Ocasio-Cortez's ideology. There's a difference between being an activist and a lawmaker in Congress. Here's the thing. Whenever I read articles like this or I hear people on TV, when they say they're progressive because they are in lockstep, they have the same ideas. They want X, Y, and Z, but they don't understand that AOC and progressives like her, their number one agenda is to rid the government of the corruption, to rid the government of the money that has seeped in, that has taken over our political system. So it's not just about your platform. It goes beyond that. It's also making sure that we hold our legislators accountable for the money that is, there's just so much money flooding in. And, I'll be going over that in future shows, exactly what's going on so that you'll understand what I'm talking about if you're new to this. It's an open question whether Ocasio-Cortez can be checked. She's barely been in Congress a week and is better known than almost any other House member other than Nancy Pelosi and John Lewis. A media throng follows her every move, and she can command a national audience practically at will. Yeah, so I say use it, girl, use it. Use that to hold people's feet to the fire. None of that came playing by the usual rules. Indeed, Ocasio-Cortez's willingness to take on her party establishment with unconventional guerrilla tactics is what got her here. It's earned her icon status on the progressive left. It's where the 29-year-old freshman derives her power, and by every indication, it's how she thinks she can pull the Democratic Party in her direction. You mean the non-corrupt direction? Yeah. The Freedom Caucus didn't win many popularity contests in Congress the past 4 years, but it's hard to dispute the hardliner success dragging the GOP to the right. It's a little bit different. Tea Partiers and the Freedom Caucus, they were dragging their party to the right, but it was about ideology, and progressives, it's really a lot of it is just about the money, showing the people that are bought and exposing that and ridding the government of all the money, taking back what has become an oligarchy. Still, fellow Democrats are giving it their best or planning to in the near future. So far, most of them have kept their criticism of Ocasio-Cortez private, fearful she'll sick her massive following on them by firing off a tweet. But a few are engaging with her in the hopes she'll opt for a different MO, especially when it comes to trying to take out Democrats in the primaries. Representative Valeska West is playing a key role, like Ocasio-Cortez. Valeska West, I think I'm saying that right. I might not be. I'm sorry if I'm not. Knocked off a longtime Democratic incumbent to win her seat, and they share Puerto Rican roots. Okay, because we're Puerto Rican, so we got to stick together. No, it doesn't work like that. In private conversations with Ocasio-Cortez over the past few months, Valeska West counseled Ocasio-Cortez against targeting her Democratic colleagues in future elections. The two had a long conversation about the dynamics of Congress and Washington and how there shouldn't be a litmus test for every district, Valeska West said in a recent interview. May or may not be true. There are some really conservative districts, and those Democrats barely won. Like Orange County, is barely blue now. It's not like real blue. So the person who won, Harley Ruda, was actually a Republican at one point. So you do have to take that into consideration. And I'm fine with that as long as you're not bought. Because that's the real problem. If you're actually representing your district, okay. But if you're representing corporate interests who've bought you out, not okay. After she defeated Democratic incumbent Joe Crowley in a shocking fashion last year, Ocasio-Cortez supported primary challengers to Democratic Rep Stephanie Murphy of Florida, William Lacey Clay of Missouri, and Mike Capuano of Massachusetts. Only Capuano lost. But can I say her name right? Valeska West told Ocasio-Cortez she should think twice in the future before backing primaries against her colleagues. Murphy, the first Vietnamese woman elected to Congress, hey, Vietnamese, but if I find out you're corrupt and if I were ever elected to Congress, I wouldn't just buddy with you just because we're both Vietnamese girls. No way. Represents a swing district and could lose her seat. Now, I don't know if she's corrupt, by the way. I should preface that. I don't know And so I shouldn't say things like that because I don't want you thinking that that's the case, as she could be clean as a whistle for all I know. So moving on here. I know some that aren't, though. Represents a swing district and could lose her seat if she's forced to move left in a primary. Washington is a political animal where a lot of the work that you want to accomplish depends on relationships with the Democratic caucus. That's why. Why is it a political animal like this? Shouldn't you just be there to vote on issues, to put forward bills, to represent your district? Shouldn't that be what you do when you go to Congress? Why is it that you have to make friends and buddy and it's about relationships? It shouldn't be. It should be quite straightforward. Go, write bills, present the bills, vote on bills, do what's best for your people back home. Quite simple, actually. The honeymoon between the voters that you represent and yourself could be a short one. People want to see results. Other lawmakers agreed. I think she needs to give herself an opportunity to know her colleagues and give herself a sense of the chemistry of the body before passing judgment on anyone or anything, said Rep. Yvette Clark, a fellow New York Democrat. She's new here, feeling her way around, added Rep. Kurt Schrader of Oregon. She doesn't understand how the place works yet. Well, she's about to find out, because when we get longer in this article, there's actually something quite alarming that we're going to hear that sounds mundane on the surface unless you really know what's going on in Washington. And then you realize, uh-oh. Ocasio-Cortez, through her staff, declined to be interviewed for this story, but there are signs that she's getting the message, at least when it comes to backing primary challenges against her colleagues. In a brief exchange of the House floor recently, she said she wasn't interested in backing progressive candidates against incumbent Democrats, contradicting her own words after the midterms. She also criticized Politico for publishing a story suggesting she considered backing a primary opponent against rising star Rep. Hakeem Jeffries, whom many believe could become the first black speaker. I'm focused on my job, Ocasio-Cortez said, as she should be, because she's representing people, and that's the job of a rep. Her spokesman, Corbin Trent, added, there has been a change in focus, though not a change in ideology. Good. Some House Democrats aren't convinced. They've noticed that Ocasio-Cortez has hired 2 former organizers from the anti-establishment group Justice Democrats to run her office. One of them, this is a good thing, by the way. You want people in there surrounding you who are going to keep your head in the game, because there are so many ways they try to corrupt each other in there. And you just want the people around you to say, remember why we're here. We're here as Justice Democrats because we're trying to get rid of the money that's in politics. One of them, her new chief of staff, oh boy, here's another name I'm just going to slaughter. I'm so sorry. Sakat Chakrabarty told supporters during a November conference call that we got a primary, folks. Ocasio-Cortez appeared to agree with him during the call, arguing that all Americans know money in politics is a huge problem. But unfortunately, the way that we fix it is by demanding that our incumbents give it up or by running fierce campaigns ourselves. That is absolutely true. The only power we have as voters is our vote. That's it. That's it. All we've got is our vote. So the only thing you can do is use your vote as a means for power against these people that are just really becoming more and more and more corrupt in Washington. And I mean, even the good guys are corrupt, the good guys and the bad guys, because you can't really avoid it. It's difficult to avoid there. And again, I'll get into that in future shows so I can really explain what I'm talking about. Long story short, I need you to run for office, she told progressive activists on the call. That's really what we need to do to save this country. Comments like that got Ocasio-Cortez off on the wrong foot with her colleagues, to say the least. It's not unreasonable for people to wonder whether she will come after them, said Rep. Grace Meng of New York. I'm choosing not to focus on if she's going to run someone against someone, but seeing how we can more effectively work with her and bring her ideas to the table. Ocasio-Cortez is an enigma to most House Democrats. She's very friendly in person, chatting up fellow lawmakers and security workers in the Capitol as she's tailed by admirers and reporters. Then they see the Ocasio-Cortez on Twitter, where she frequently snaps at critics and occasionally at fellow Democrats. When House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer told reporters that a new climate committee that Ocasio-Cortez championed would not have subpoena power, she retweeted the news and chastised Democratic leadership. Our goal is to treat climate change like the serious existential threat it is by drafting an ambitious solution on the scale necessary, aka a Green New Deal, to get it done, she said. A weak committee misses the point and endangers people. I'm going to look into this. I want to look into this. Why do they not have subpoena power? Who are the people that are on this committee, and who are their top donors? Two House Democratic sources compared her use of Twitter to Donald Trump's. Just as congressional Republicans constantly withhold criticism of the president out of fear he'll unleash a tweet on them, some Democrats have done the same with Ocasio-Cortez. People are afraid of her. Good. You know why they're afraid of her? They're not really afraid of her. They're afraid of the people that she has access to. That's who they're afraid of. Again, it's the power of the voter. It's the power of our voice. She has an audience of people. And if she says this is what's going on and we all hear it, we're going to be pissed. That's the power. Representative Carolyn Maloney of New York predicted that Ocasio-Cortez will soon learn that Republicans are the real enemy, she says, quote unquote. That also is upsetting to me. Look, I get it. Republicans are, right now, a lot of them are shit. I understand that. But at the same time, it shouldn't be enemy. And, you know, when you go to Congress, when you're in Washington, this is the problem that was created. And Newt Gingrich was a big, huge part of this problem. When we've got this environment in Washington now where it's, you're on my team, and that's it, and they're the enemy. And the problem with that is it creates an environment where even if the person on your team has a really bad idea or is doing something really sketchy, it's like you're willing to back them just because they're on your team, quote unquote, and the other people are the enemy. And it creates an environment where when the other side has a good idea, you're not even willing to listen to it because you're just like, no, they're the enemy. I hate them. So it's not good. The real enemy in Congress, by the way, is not Republicans or Democrats. It's the money in politics. It's the power that money has been able to take, or I'm sorry, I said that wrong. It's money has the power of money over our Congress. That is the real enemy. And they've allowed it through time, and it's both sides have done it, you know, maybe one side more than the other, but they both have done it, have allowed this money to seep into our system, and they take advantage of it, and it becomes this situation where one side is doing it, so the other side has to do it, and the other side does it, and the other side has to do it, and then they all are in on this really horrible corruption. She will come to the understanding that it's a better use of her time fighting the Republican Party than her Democratic colleagues who agree with her on green energy. Look, you can agree with me on green energy and Medicare for all and claim all of that all day long. It comes down to your voting record, and it comes down to who you're taking money from. So that's it. Others aren't so sure. They point to her first week in Congress. Ocasio-Cortez aggravated Democratic leaders and even some fellow progressives when she tweeted that she'd oppose the Democratic rules package, arguing it would stymie liberal priorities like Medicare for all. What progressives are they talking about in Politico? This is another thing. There's actually a lot of people in the Democratic Party have started calling themselves progressives, but progressive movement is an actual movement that really has a lot to do with getting money out of politics. And all of the platform of the progressives like Bernie Sanders, the platform is there to show that Americans support this. And why are we not having these things? We don't have these things because there's so much corruption and money in politics that we can't have the things that American people overwhelmingly want. So when they say progressives, fellow progressives were upset, that's not really, I don't know. They're using that term loosely, I guess I should say. And, you know, to make a concession, I would say there's a difference between progressives and somebody being progressive. And I can explain that also in a future episode, which I'm sure I will. House Democrats were also unhappy when she made a play for the seat on the powerful Ways and Means Committee. Lawmakers suspected Ocasio-Cortez was behind a massive online campaign pressing Pelosi to appoint her to the panel, though her office said she was not. Again, I am sorry, but you might only have 2 years there. Any lawmaker should just assume they've only got 2 years there. And so they should make a play for any committee they could be on. They should be doing whatever they can to be the best tool for their constituents possible. That's what they should be doing. What is this whole, well, you're just a freshman, you don't know anything. I mean, Critics inside the caucus felt she didn't deserve it, given her lack of professional experience on tax issues and her status as a freshman. It totally pissed off everyone, said one senior House Democratic lawmaker of the campaign. You don't get picked for committees by who your grassroots supporters are. Listen to this shit. This is where the article starts to get me upset. You don't get picked for committees based on who your grassroots supporters are. So you don't get picked for committees based on your voters. You don't get picked for committees based on the population who voted you in, liking you, voting for you, asking you to represent them. I guess those people don't deserve real representation because they've got a freshman lawmaker. That's what this person is saying. That is outrageous to me. They're all equal when you're there. I don't care if you've been there for 20 years or 2 minutes. You're all equal. And that's the way it should be. But the issue of pushing primaries against Democratic incumbents such as Jeffries, who was recently elected chairman of the Democratic caucus, is what agitated rank-and-file members the most. The chances that a Democratic caucus will stand by and watch its chair get attacked and people piling on him by Democrats is so obscene that I think you'll find one of the strongest reactions that could possibly be anticipated, Cleaver said. Again, it's this whole team mentality that has been created in politics that dates back to Newt Gingrich. And it's awful because the reality is there should be no team in politics. There should be no loyalty in politics at all. Politics, for one, if you really want to be loyal, then my God, you got to go back to the Democratic Party and some of its roots and you got to own it. And I don't think you want to. I don't think you want to own those. And that's what Republicans do, right? They're always saying, we're the party of Lincoln. Okay, no, you're not. Not anymore. Lincoln wouldn't even recognize you. But are you supposed to be loyal because of the name? It's not family. It's not blood. It's politics. It's ideas. And if you don't agree with my ideas anymore, then I'm supposed to be loyal? That doesn't make any sense. There's no loyalty in politics, and we have to remember that. This is about our lives. This isn't about playing for teams. You know, sports teams, fine. You can be loyal to your sports team, even when they suck. But not in politics. When they suck, they suck. You got to vote them out. That's the way it works. Where did I go here? Representative Gregory Meeks of New York said he's taking Ocasio-Cortez at her word that she wants to work with everybody. As he said, she told him. Meeks and other members of the New York delegation intend to nominate Ocasio-Cortez to serve on the Financial Services Committee, an exclusive panel early next week. This is a big problem. I don't even think I have time to explain this in this podcast. I need more hours, but okay. I will do a deeper dive into this for you so I can cite my work for you and back up everything I say. And believe me, I'm a heavy researcher. So the Financial Services Committee, this is like the most powerful committee. They rule the banks. They rule real estate, loans, banks, insurance, all of that. Okay, so it's huge. And remember that big crisis? Yeah. So these guys are meant to oversee the banks. They oversee the insurance agencies. They oversee all of this. And a lot of times they like to put members on these committees in order to get them, they end up like hobnobbing. It's really strange. And we should all be actually outraged by this, which is why I'll do a deep dive on this. But these committees are supposed to oversee certain industries. This one in particular, like I said, oversees the banks. Yet the members of these committees get bigger donations, and I mean by a lot, like double the size donations from the very people that they're overseeing. They get bigger donations to their campaigns by the banks and by the insurance companies, because why wouldn't they? If you were the bank, if you were a banker and you were like, this person's going to be regulating me, I better donate to them. Okay, give them some money. And if I give them a bunch of money, then, maybe they'll be softer on the regulations. That's so wrong. And yet that's exactly what's going on in government right now. And it's an open secret. You can go to opensecrets.com. It's a totally open secret. If you're on the Financial Services Committee, you're going to be raking in the dough fundraising. It's like an ATM machine, they say. It's they liken that financial committee to being an ATM machine. They say you lean to the green. You just rake in the dough if you're sitting on that committee. So them saying in this, we're doing a nice thing. We want to put Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the Financial Services Committee. The most vocal person in Congress right now who's speaking up against money in politics, the one they're afraid of. They want to stick her on a committee where she's going to get the taste of the high life. Because not only do they donate to campaigns, but they also take them on fancy trips and they do parties and they do all of this really, it's the social life that politicians get. It's like winning the lottery when you become a politician and you go to Washington. You get a bunch of money and there's leadership PACs and they donate to those, and that's just a slush fund. These politicians can spend that on going to Super Bowl parties or to the Super Bowl with $30,000 tickets or whatever. It's not good. So the fact that they were like, oh, we're doing her a favor, we're being nice, we're going to put her on the Financial Services Committee. What they're really saying is we're going to get her early. We're going to show her the goods, and then she's going to shut up. She's never going to talk again because she's going to start taking the money. And let's just hope that this doesn't happen. It's one thing for outside activists to go after Democratic incumbents, Meek says. It's another thing when you're in this institution and you've got to work to get things done. This kind of goes on to say people should just get used. So Representative Ruel, gosh, why do they have, I just can't, why, I need all of these names sent to me, and I just need to become more cultured, clearly, because I cannot pronounce a lot of these names, and I'm so sorry about this. And I get it because I come from a Vietnamese family and nobody can pronounce the names. And Raul Grijalva, I'm so sorry. The former head of the House Progressive Caucus said Democrats should probably get used to Ocasio-Cortez. She's going to force some of the members to have to align with or against her, he said. In that sense, I would assume that can be irritating to some. Yeah, and it should be. Maybe it's the aunt or uncle you didn't want to invite to the wedding, he says. But Ocasio-Cortez is part of the family. So, yes, and I hope that she remains aggravating to every member in Congress. I hope that they do feel fear when they see her. I hope that they are afraid that she is going to find out more about what's going on in Congress, and she's going to tell us exactly what's going on. And that's what I love about her. What I love is she does have this huge following. I love that she's got this command of a young audience, because people like me who, and I'm fairly new to all of this as well, as far as the deep dive researching and finding out the corruption that's going on. But, I do a lot of that reading and a lot of that researching, and I'm very interested in that. But not everybody does have the time to do that. And to have somebody who can just tweet out, here's the corruption going on. The power in that is so great. And I hope that she continues to use that, because it is just so important that we really do expose the corruption that's going on and really get the money out of politics so that we can finally start getting the legislation that we want, because there's so much we want and they're not doing for us. And it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I really hope that she does get on that Financial Services Committee. Part of me hopes she does, and that she says, I'm not taking a dime from any of this. And I'm not, and I'm going to expose everything that's going on, and the fact that they're all bought on that committee. And I really mean that, unfortunately. And it brings me no pleasure to say that, because it's really heartbreaking when you see politicians you admire and you find out that they've just been taking a lot of money and they're not really working for you, and they've been greasing their own pocketbooks, and it's heartbreaking. It's like finding out you've been cheated on by your boyfriend. I mean, it's really heartbreaking. So good for you, AOC. You go get him.